Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome back. Let's talk about running your pfSense firewall on VMware vSphere 8. Because if you're already running VMware vSphere 8, it can have a lot of benefits in virtualizing your firewall, your pfSense firewall. So in this video, I will show you how to set it up in your VMware environment, how to make sure that you have WAN and LAN connectivity, even configure some VLANs in there. And also, because we're running pfSense from the community edition basically, and then I want to upgrade it to the plus version as well, because if you install the plus version, there can be some added benefits. For example, if you would like to have pfSense running in your production environment, when you're running the plus version, you are able then to get support and SLAs from Netgate. I will leave the links to all the Netgate documentation on how to get support, contracts, and SLAs if you're running pfSense Plus. Check the link in the description. And let's get into it. Now, this is the official documentation from Netgate. I will leave a link to this document in the description below. And what I will do is I will set up pfSense in my vSphere, VMware vSphere 8 environment, because I want to have access, network access in my test lab VLAN. I have a special VLAN dedicated to all my home lab and test lab equipment and virtual machines. And I want to have some networking there with a firewall in front of it and also have internet access there. So what I will do is I will set up this pfSense firewall in my VMware vSphere 8 platform, and I will connect two network interfaces to it. One of the network interfaces will be in my normal LAN and the other one will be in the test lab VLAN. I will show you that in a bit. So first of all, make sure that you download the pfSense ISO. And the ISO can be downloaded from the pfSense downloads page. What we will use is the latest stable version, Community Edition. As you can see here, there is no option to download the pfSense Plus version, because what we will do is we will install the Community Edition. And after that, we have to take some steps to upgrade this Community Edition to the Plus version. And now that Plus version, how to get there, I will show you in the video. First of all, start by selecting the architecture which we will use on the VMware platform to install pfSense. Now we have to use the 64-bit architecture. Make sure that you select the ISO installer, not the USB one, because the USB one is used if you're installing pfSense on dedicated hardware. We are going to use the ISO installer because it's basically an operating system we are installing on that VMware vSphere platform in a virtual machine, and then choose the mirror which is nearer to you. Now that we've downloaded the ISO file, make sure that you have that ISO file already on your vSphere platform. In my case, if I go to my data store, and as you can see here, I have a special ISO folder dedicated in one of my data stores, and this ISO folder has several ISOs I can use to install operating systems. Now, one of those ISOs is the pfSense ISO, which you can see here, which is already available to me. Now, if we go back, let's start to create a virtual machine. And I want to place the virtual machine in my YouTube demo folder. So what I will do is click on it and say, we want a new virtual machine. We are going to create a virtual machine and click on next. And this will be my pfSense.vcache.lan. It will be sitting in this folder. That's fine. And I have to select, of course, the correct compute resources. In my home lab, it's just a small home lab. I have one physical host, and that's the place where this pfSense virtual machine will be running. Now, if I click on next, I am able to select on the data store where I want to put the data file, that vmdk file VMware needs, and all the configuration files attached to that. Well, I will select one of my storages, data stores, and I will click on next. Here I will say, all right, I will just keep the compatibility of the hardware compatibility of that virtual machine, which will run pfSense for me to the latest. That's nice, that's fine. Click on next, and this is where you have to take a little bit of note, because you have to select other. Well, in my case, I will just make sure that I just select a 64-bit other operating system, because none of the operating systems which are in this list are actually the operating system I want. Of course, pfSense is built on FreeBSD, so, and of course the latest version of pfSense is running FreeBSD 14, so you should be able to run pfSense perfectly fine when you select FreeBSD 14. I will just select other because it is not a known operating system in the list here. So the guest OS name is, well, we can set up pfSense. All right. Click on next. And now this is very interesting because in the previous step, in this step, when you choose a specific operating system and a specific operating system version, well, what VMware will do, what vSphere will do, it will, when you click on the next screen, it will propose a basic configuration to run that specific operating system. In this case, it doesn't know anything about the operating system I am running because pfSense is not in that list. So what I will do is say, I will dedicate 2 CPUs to that pfSense firewall. I want to have a little bit more memory there. So let's say I will have 4 GB of memory in there and no reservations whatsoever. Then the next thing is give it a disk. Well, pfSense is just a small instance. It doesn't take up that much of space. Actually, and 20 GB is nice. This is a demo environment. So what I will do is I will open up that in the hard disk property and select thin provision. So this is fine for a demo environment. And what I will do is I will have to give it 2 network interfaces because what I'm doing is I'm dedicating 1 network interface to the WAN. And of course, the WAN for this pfSense virtual machine will be in real world. It will be a interface in my LAN network because in my LAN network, that's the place where I'm sitting with my workstation, with my MacBook workstation. And from that LAN, I want to be able to get to those virtual machines, which I'm running in that test lab network. So the first network will be LAN. Now take note, this is from the VMware vSphere perspective, right? As you can see here, I have 4 networks dedicated here. I have 4 networks configured on my vSphere platform. I will use 1 network interface in my LAN network. That's okay. And I will add immediately a second network interface. And you can just click on add device there and say that we want to have a network adapter. Click on network adapter. And now, as you can see here, there are 2 network interfaces available in this virtual machine. The first one will be my LAN because that's the WAN interface within that pfSense instance I'm going to install in a minute. And the second one, that's the interface which will be on the LAN side, so to speak, for all the virtual machines living in my test lab. So once again, I have 2 interfaces defined in this virtual machine. 1 interface will be in my physical LAN network and the other interface will be in my test lab VLAN. This virtual machine will never know that the network interfaces it has are living in a VLAN because from the virtual machine's perspective, it is just a WAN interface and a LAN interface. And pfSense need those interfaces to do routing and firewalling and basically basic functionality. So make sure that you understand it and that it reflects the configuration you have in your own network. Now, the ISO that I downloaded, we have to say that we will install, of course, pfSense from a data store ISO file. I've already showed you that I have made that ISO available here, and I will click on data store ISO file, correct folder as well, and then say I want to install, or I want to select the pfSense ISO. You can see it's pfSense CE for Community Edition, because that's the edition we need to install, and after that we can take several steps to upgrade it to the Plus version. So click on that ISO file and say, all right, that's fine, we're going to do that. And we will say it has to connect at power on, because when we boot up this virtual machine, we want to immediately be able to install pfSense in it. So that's what we're going to do. Just click open the properties of that CD DVD drive and say connected at power on. Make sure once again that that pfSense ISO is selected there and everything is looking okay. One thing of note, the network interfaces, as you can see here, open up those network interfaces because VMware doesn't know the operating system we are going to install, just like I explained it. And in order to get the best performance of within those network interfaces from the pfSense side, make sure that you select the VMX-Net3 adapter type in the network interface properties. This will give you the best performance for pfSense running on VMware. So I will do it for the second interface as well. Make sure that you select those before continuing to the next step. Everything is fine. I have 2 CPUs, 4 GB of memory. I have a hard disk specified, which is configured with thin provisioning because this is of course a demo environment. And then I have made sure that my adapter type for the network interfaces is VMX-Net3. Click on next. Check the summary you get presented if everything is okay. Then click on finish. If you click on finish, you will see that VMware has created a new virtual machine, and we still have to power it down, of course. So what we'll do is make sure that everything is exactly as we configured it. It's looking okay. And now I will say power on. When I say power on, it will immediately start up the virtual machine. And I hope I'm fast enough. Let's launch the web console. And there it is. pfSense is already starting up. This is starting up from the ISO. Let's wait for it to finish so we can continue with the installation steps. The pfSense installer will say, okay, this is fine. Let's accept this. And I want to install pfSense. I will choose the ZFS file system. Let's do that. And I don't want to set up something else, so I will just say proceed with the installation. And because I only have one drive in here, I have only dedicated one disk to this virtual machine, I don't have any redundancy. If you would have several disks within this virtual machine, or for example, if you would install pfSense on a physical server with multiple disks in there, well, as you can see here, you can choose to have redundancy from the hardware perspective. I am running this on my VMware environment. The vSphere 8 environment is giving me the ability to have redundancy and availability, high availability built in within the hypervisor layer. So I don't have to worry about high availability and, well, redundancy in my virtual machine from the application perspective, so to speak. So I will just say no redundancy, that's fine. And that's the VMware virtual disk, it detects it. And let me select that disks and then say okay. All right, do you know for sure that you're going to install pfSense on that disk? Because it will destroy all data which is on the disk. This is of course a dedicated virtual machine I'm setting up for this purpose, so I'm fine with that. And the installation starts. Well, basically that's it. It has finished the installation. Now what it will do is it will reboot the virtual machine and it will start pfSense from the installed base in that on that disk, on that VMDK. Let's do a reboot. And now that the VM has booted, that virtual machine with pfSense in it, you can see there is a message here that there is no VMware tools installed. We'll get to that in a minute. What we'll do first is I've launched the web console here, and this is the console. This is basically the display output you would have if you would install pfSense on a physical hardware, on a physical server, for example. And what it says is it will run into a little wizard because you have to assign the WAN and the LAN interface. It has 2 network interfaces. That's the configuration I gave the virtual machine in VMware vSphere. Now I know that VMX0, that's the interface I want to dedicate to my WAN side, and the VMX1 will be the interface I want to dedicate to the LAN side in this virtual machine. If you want to make sure that you have the correct interface, you can see that the MAC address is displayed there as well. So just head back to your vCenter and check what's the MAC address of the interface you want to connect to the LAN side. because the LAN interface in my case, that's the interface I'm going to use to, or going to dedicate within this pfSense, this virtualized pfSense as a WAN interface. Well, as you can see here, this is the MAC address. It's and let's see, this is the first one. So the VMX0 will be physically connected to my LAN, but that's the WAN interface in my virtual pfSense, because that's where the internet will come from for this virtual machine. Now, the first step is, do VLANs need to be set up first? No VLAN setup, sir. Let's go. All right, and then it wants to know what the WAN interface is. Well, just like I explained it, check with the MAC address here if you have the correct interface on the vSphere side, on the VMware side. I know that for me it is VMX0. That's the interface I'm going to dedicate to the WAN. And then of course VMX1 is the interface we are going to dedicate to the LAN. All right, it will show you a short summary. The interfaces will be assigned as follows. WAN will be VMX0, LAN will be VMX1. Do you want to proceed? Yes, I know this. I want to proceed. And it will continue to complete this short and setup wizard. Let's wait for it to finish. All right, there we are. The setup wizard is finished and I have pfSense running on VMware. There are some steps, of course, we have to take, because if you see here in this display, it says the WAN interface got an IP address from the WAN side, because this pfSense virtual machine doesn't know that the WAN interface is actually in my LAN, physical LAN here. So it has a IP address, it got an IP address from the WAN interface, that's fine. In the LAN interface, it says I have an IP which contains of 192.168.1.1/24. This is the default scope and the default IP address it will configure on your LAN interface after a out-of-the-box install. Now I know that the LAN interface shown here, it's actually an interface within my physical VLAN, which is named test lab. And in that VLAN, I'm already running a DHCP server there, and the scope of the subnet in my test lab VLAN is different. So I will make sure that my LAN interface reflects that scope. How do I do that? Well, as you can see here, what I want to do is set a interface address. So I will choose 2. Okay. And I have to say, enter the number of the interface you wish to configure. I want to configure the second one, the LAN interface. Enter the new LAN IPv address, IPv4 address, of course. I know that the scope there is 130 dot, and let's give it an IP here. I will say it's 30. So this is fine. And what is the subnet? That's 24. That is fine as well. Okay. For the WAN address, enter the new LAN IPv upstream gateway server. For LAN, press enter. For none, because I don't have an upstream gateway server on a LAN address. Unless you have a specific networking situation, you don't need this, so just press enter. Do you want to configure an IPv6 address? No, I will not do that. And I will enter to continue. Do you want to enable the DHCP server on LAN? And this is important because I already have in this test lab, let me go back to my vSphere environment. In this test lab VLAN, I already have a DHCP server running. I don't want my pfSense virtual machine to be handing out IP addresses there. So here I will say, do not enable DHCP server. All right, it is disabled. And it will ask me, do you want to refer to HTTP as a web configuration protocol? Well, this is fine. This is for the web interface of pfSense. Configure it. And now it says, okay, we have done some configuration. This is the IP address where you can reach that configuration, that web configurator. That's basically the interface we need to configure pfSense. So I will say that's fine. Yes. Let's open up a new tab and enter that URL, which you can see here. on the LAN interface. And when I do that, I can see, all right, there we are. This is a pfSense interface. And let's log in to complete the configuration. Let's log in with admin and the default password. That's pfSense. And now the wizard will start, because this is the first time we're logging in into this pfSense firewall, and the wizard will start to complete the setup. So what we'll do is, all right, click on next. This is fine. Let's close out my Bitwarden extension there. Now, this is very important. If you want to have that global support, you have to have some kind of contract, some kind of support contract with Netgate. I will leave the URL in the description on how to get that, and you can read all about it there. There is, of course, if you want to have support contracts, there is cost involved. But in order to upgrade pfSense from CE, from this community edition, as you can see here in the top left corner of the web page, it says pfSense Community Edition. If you want to upgrade this to the Plus Edition, that's free. I will show you in a bit how to do that. Now I will click on next. You can configure some sort of host name or a domain. I will configure my basic domain, and this is fine. Okay, I will not override DNS. Here you can enter which DNS servers it basically will use. I will leave it as it is. So I will click on next, and then you can set up some time zone and time server host name, etc. Well, my time zone is Europe Amsterdam, so it's fine. And it says again, configure the WAN interface. We already know that for the WAN interface, I can use DHCP because that's the interface which is in the physical LAN of my network here, and it's fine to get a IP address there from DHCP. I don't need to enter other parameters. If you need to enter specific parameters for that WAN interface, you can do it here, of course. And what I will do is, because I am running this pfSense basically with a WAN configuration IP, which is in a private network space. So I will say allow private networks from the WAN side. This is very important because otherwise routing and other internet specific routing will not work. Because what pfSense expects is the WAN side, it's a WAN site, so it does not have a private IP address. But in this case, it's perfectly fine. So I will uncheck those boxes, click on next. The LAN site, as I already did. If I go back to this configurator, you can see that the LAN site, we have configured that with a specific IP address. And I will leave it as it is and click on next. Give it a admin password, a more complex password, and click on next. All right, so now we are finished. Well, nearly. It is reloading in the background, and once the reload has been done, you are basically ready to go with your virtualized pfSense. Let's click on finish. You will get a pop-up, of course, with some compliancy and some other information. I click on accept and click here on close. We don't want to take the survey, it just now. All right, so pfSense is installed. What we'll have to do, there are some steps to take, of course, because pfSense is running on vSphere. That means to get rid of this notification and to have some awareness from the vSphere side within the virtual machine is we have to install Open VM tools. To do that, this is basically the first step you would take after installing pfSense on VMware. So click on System and then click on Package Manager. Of course, there are no installed packages. We will go to Available Packages. Let it update the list and search for Open VM tools. As you can see here, this is the tools we need to install in order to get support from within vCenter to pfSense installed in this virtual machine. So let's click on install. I'll let it download the Open VM tools and install it. Let's wait for it to finish. And there we go. It has installed the Open VM tools. If we go back to pfSense Community Edition, because we have installed the Open VM tools, well, it will reinitialize basically, and you will get these pop-ups. Click on close. And now if we go back to vCenter, you will see that the warning we had earlier, that warning is gone, because now we have VMware tools running in this virtual machine, in this pfSense virtual machine. That means that we can do some operations and create some awareness, have some awareness what's going on in that virtual machine from the VMware vCenter side. Now, in order to upgrade my pfSense Community Edition to pfSense Plus, there are some steps you need to take. Now, this is the official documentation from Netgate itself. I will leave the link in the description below. And there are requirements, of course. The requirements is perform a fresh install of at least pfSense CE software 2.6.0. We are, as a matter of fact, we are on a newer version, 2.7.0. So that is fine. And of course, we have to obtain a activation token. The first step is to go to the Netgate store. Let's do that. And in the Netgate store, we will click on how to buy. Let's click on how to buy. And then we can see that, well, there is a filter list here. We don't want that. We are going first for the overview. If you go to the overview, you will learn what pfSense Plus is. Of course, scroll down to the pricing. Click on the no charge option. We are going to do the no charge option here. And you can then see immediately what type of pfSense contract you can have for support, right? If we started with the pfSense CE version, the Community Edition, and we will have to upgrade to the home or the for home or lab environment to the pfSense Plus Edition, and then you can have the pfSense Plus Edition with a support contract from Netgate, in case you're running pfSense on VMware in your production environment, and you need to have that SLA, that level of support in place for your company, for your production environment. Scroll down in this list, of course, to see what the different versions and the options are between the several contracts. Let's click on Buy Now and choose pfSense Plus products and say we want a pfSense Plus subscription. Okay, we will go for the home lab environment. I will choose lab because this is my lab environment and say, click on Add to Chart and Enter Chart. As you can see here, it still says $0 US. And having pfSense Plus is, of course, the benefit of having new features and new developments there quickly, much quicker than the CE version, of course. And let's click on Checkout. I will have to log in here with an account. Let's quickly log in with the account I have for. If I click on sign in, I can again go to my chart and see that pfSense Plus software subscription is in place and click on checkout. If I click on checkout, it will take me to the account page where everything is entered. My address, etc. is here. Make sure that you select the box, the checkbox at the bottom of the page and click on continue to payment. Well, basically the payment, there is no payment, right? Because the amount here is $0, so that's fine. And I will say just complete my order. Now, when my order has been completed, what it will do, as you can see here, you will receive a confirmation email with your order number shortly. And in that order number, there is a specific key you need to enter in your pfSense in order to unlock the Plus Edition. So let me go to my email real quick and grab that key and come back here to System. It will say the correct steps you need to enter and where you need to enter that key. Now, if I go to System and click on the registration page, as you can see here, this is Register. Click on Register. And then you have to paste in the activation token and click on register. You can see here now, I have successfully registered my pfSense CE version. So I need to update now to the Plus version. So what happens now is go to System, click on Update. If you click on Update, it will reach out and say, okay, it's retrieving the information. I'm on the latest stable CE version, but now I have the option to upgrade to the latest pfSense Plus version. So I will select that. And now we have the option to upgrade to the Plus version, as you can see here. So let's click on confirm. And let's give it a minute to upgrade, and then it will automatically reboot pfSense. When it comes up, you will see that the community edition has been changed to the pfSense Plus edition. Let's wait for the update to finish. And there it is. It's starting the upgrade. It's getting the several packages it needs to upgrade. Make sure that you don't close this tab, because this is where the update process is running now. And by closing the tab, the chances are that the upgrade process will break. So keep this tab open and wait for the update to finish. After the update finishes, it will automatically reboot and you will be redirected to the admin page. As you can see now, it says pfSense Plus. So that means that it is updated now. Let's log in with my admin account. And here we are. It says pfSense Plus on the top left corner. And everything is running fine. As we can see here, just make sure that you don't need any more updates. So click on System, go to Update. And now it will reach out again to Netgate and check if there are any updates. At this moment, there are no updates. I'm running the latest stable version of pfSense Plus at the time of making this video. And basically that's the process of installing pfSense, your virtual firewall and router on VMware vSphere 8. There are some steps you have to take. You have to download the ISO and make it available using one of the data stores on your VMware vSphere platform. Then install the operating system. Make sure to make the right choices for CPU usage, memory and disk settings, of course. And don't forget the network adapter type. Make sure that you change it to the VMXNet 3 adapter type to get the best performance, of course. And then after the installation of pfSense, log in. Make sure you install the OpenVM tools to have the VMware integration and best performance for all the virtual hardware within that virtual machine. If you have done that, then the next step is to upgrade for pfSense to pfSense Plus. And basically, well, there is some argument, of course. Why wouldn't you say on the CE edition? Because for a home lab environment, that's perfectly fine. And that's okay, of course. You can stay on the CE edition, but my experience is that from a software perspective, pfSense Plus is being developed with much more priority than pfSense CE. I'm not saying that there is no attention to CE, because there is actually, but new features and new options are available in the Plus version first, and then afterwards being ported to the CE version of pfSense Plus. So of course, if you don't need support and you're just using for lab purposes and you don't need the newest features, well, you can stay perfectly fine on the CE version. I choose to go to the Plus version. It doesn't cost me anything, and I have all the new options and features which Netgate is releasing as we go. So that's it for this video. Do click the like and subscribe button if you like it. And of course, if you have comments, place it in the comment section below. I will get to them as soon as possible. Bye.